The ash tasted like burnt hymns. Kael Drummond had been on Thessia IV long enough to recognize the particular bitterness of incinerated faith, stone dust mixed with vaporized offerings, the molecular residue of devotion converted to vapor by plasma fire. He crouched behind a collapsed pillar, one hand on his pulse rifle, the other checking his med-scanner's readout. 3 days since the orbital strike. 72 hours for the temple complex to cool from glowing rubble to smoldering monument. His earpiece crackled. "Drummond, you getting anything on thermal?" "Negative," he whispered back, watching the scanner's display flicker across debris patterns. "Just heat signatures from the fires. No biologicals." Lieutenant Vance's voice carried that particular exhaustion unique to occupation forces in their 7th year of peacekeeping. "Copy that. Finish your sweep of the eastern wing and rejoin at Rally Point Delta. Command wants casualty confirmation by 1800 hours, so they can call this whole mess proportional response." Kael didn't reply. Proportional to what? He'd stopped asking those questions around month 6, right about the time he realized the recruitment hologram promising humanitarian medical support for developing colonies had failed to mention the developing colonies might object to Earth's definition of development. He moved through the wreckage with practiced efficiency, his boots crunching on fragments of carved stone. The Kathara Temple had stood for 1,000 years before someone in orbital command decided it made an excellent insurgent staging ground. They'd probably been right. Ziriva's people had been using sacred sites as cover for months, gambling that Earth forces might hesitate before turning churches into craters. They'd gambled wrong. His scanner pinged. Biological signature, faint but present, 30 meters ahead in what remained of the sanctuary. Kael's grip tightened on his rifle. Protocol said call it in. Experience said biologicals in bombed-out insurgent positions were either dying civilians or very angry fighters, and neither option ended well for the first responder. The plasma bolt that scorched past his helmet made the decision for him. He dove left, rolling behind a half-collapsed archway as return fire lit up the smoke-filled air. His heart hammered against his chest plate. Contact. Eastern Sanctuary taking fire. He risked a glance around the stone. Another bolt, poorly aimed, sizzling against the rubble above his head. "Drummond, pull back. We're coming to you." But he'd already seen her. Blue skin streaked with ash and blood, blonde hair matted against her skull. Those distinctive Thessian ears, long and tapered, almost elfin, twitching with pain or anger or both. She braced herself against a pillar, her left arm hanging useless, an energy pistol wavering in her right hand. The weapon's power cell flickered, nearly depleted. Kael did the math. She was hurt, likely dying from that shoulder wound if the iridescent blood trail was any indication. One good shot and she'd go down. He'd be back at base in time for the dehydrated lasagna they passed off as dinner. He lowered his rifle. "I'm not going to hurt you." His voice echoed in the ruined sanctuary. "But that burn will kill you in an hour if I don't." The woman, girl really, couldn't be more than 25 standard years, laughed. It was not a happy sound. Human medic offers to save Thessian insurgent. This is new propaganda technique, yes. Very creative. I die anyway, but with more irony. "Not propaganda," Kael said, slowly setting his rifle on the ground. "Just a really bad day for both of us." He raised his hands, showing his med kit. "That plasma burn on your shoulder has compromised your subclavian artery. You're losing blood faster than your body can compensate. In 40, maybe 50 minutes, you'll lose consciousness. 10 minutes after that, you're gone." She kept the pistol trained on him, but her hand shook. "You speak our anatomy very well. 18 months in country. You pick things up." He took one careful step forward, mostly how to keep people alive long enough to hate me properly. "I already hate you properly." But something in her voice shifted, pain breaking through bravado. "Your battalion, they were at Kethmora village 6 months ago." Kael's stomach twisted. He remembered Kethmora, remembered the screaming. "Yeah, we were there." My cousin lived in Kethmora. Past tense now, you understand. I understand. Another step, I'm sorry. Sorry is cheap Earth export, like freedom, like democracy, like plasma fire from sky. Her ears flattened against her skull, a Thessian expression of rage he'd learned to recognize. You sorry enough to let me shoot you. Probably deserve it, Kael admitted. But I'd rather bandage you instead. Call me optimistic. Her laugh this time carried a sharp edge of hysteria. The pistol dipped. You are terrible negotiator. I'm a medic, not a diplomat. He was close enough now to see her pupils dilating, shock setting in. Look, you can shoot me after I stop you from bleeding out. Deal. This is worst deal in history of deals. But she lowered the weapon, sliding down the pillar until she sat among the rubble and ash. Maybe I am delirious already. Kael knelt beside her, hands moving with practiced precision through his med kit. Scanner first, running the diagnostic beam across her shoulder. The readout made him wince. Degree plasma burn, compromised artery, early signs of hypovolemic shock. Okay, this is going to hurt. Everything hurts, human, be specific. I need to clean the wound before I can seal it. The coagulant gel works better on. She hissed as he pressed the first applicator against charred flesh. Hey, not so rough. Trust me, rough would be letting you die from infection. He worked quickly, clearing debris and necrotic tissue. Her breathing came in sharp gasps. Talk to me, stay conscious. About what? How your people destroy my world. How you bomb temples and call it liberation. Sure, or the weather. I hear Thessia IV has lovely weather. He applied the coagulant, watching it foam and seal. Before we ruined it with industrial processing plants. She stared at him with eyes the color of deep ocean, searching for sarcasm. Finding only exhaustion. You are very strange human soldier. Medic, he corrected. Soldiers break things, I fix them. Usually the same things, which is the really depressing part. The synthetic skin graft slid into place, bioadhesive bonding with healthy tissue. There, you'll live to hate me another day. This is guarantee. Barring complications, yes. Ziriva, though he didn't know her name yet, touched the fresh graft with her good hand, wonder mixing with suspicion. Why? Because leaving people to die in rubble isn't in my job description. Kael sat back, wiping blood from his hands. And because maybe if I save one person today, I can sleep tonight without seeing Kethmora every time I close my eyes. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other across the small space between enemy and enemy, occupier and occupied, the weight of war pressing down on the ancient stones around them. In the distance, Kael's unit was calling his name. Somewhere beyond the ruins, her people were surely searching too. But in that sanctuary, surrounded by the ashes of faith and the debris of conquest, a medic and an insurgent sat in the smoke-filtered light, both wondering what happened when the enemy stopped being abstract and became someone whose life you held in your hands. The energy pistol hadn't moved, but its aim had shifted from Kael's chest to somewhere around his left shoulder. Progress, he supposed. Ziriva's breathing had steadied, the coagulant doing its work, but her eyes tracked every movement he made with the wariness of a predator pretending to be wounded. You will leave now, she said, not a question, medically inadvisable. Kael checked his scanner again, watching her vital signs stabilize. That graft needs 20 minutes to fully bond. Move too soon and you'll tear it open. Then we get to do this whole thing again, except with more bleeding and less witty banter. Witty? Her ears twitched, an expression he'd learned meant either amusement or preparation to bite. You think you are witty? Compared to most military personnel, absolutely. He started packing his medkit, movement slow and visible. Private Jenks thinks knock-knock jokes are peak comedy. Lieutenant Vance's idea of humor is ironic war crimes. The bar is underground. Your lieutenant makes jokes about, she stopped, processing. That is not joke, that is confession. Yeah, well, Kael's hands paused. Welcome to year 7 of humanitarian intervention. His earpiece crackled again. Drummond status. He muted it without responding. Ziriva noticed. Your friends will look for you. Let them, I'm conducting field triage. He met her stare. Hippocratic oath doesn't have an exemption clause for insurgents. Hippo what? Old earth thing. Doctors promise to do no harm, help the sick, generally not be terrible human beings. He smiled without humor. Command considers it more of a suggestion than a requirement. Ziriva shifted, testing her shoulder. The graft held. She looked at it with something between gratitude and fury, as if being saved by an enemy soldier was the worst insult the universe could devise. This Hippocratic oath, it is older than your occupation. About 3,000 years older. Thessian medical philosophy is older. Not a competition. Everything is competition with humans. But she lowered the pistol completely, setting it on her lap. The power cell died with a pathetic whine. You know who I am. Kael studied her face, the high cheekbones, the defiant set of her jaw. Recognition clicked. Ziriva. Eastern Mountain Insurgency. 3rd or 4th on the most wanted list, depending on who you ask. 2nd, she corrected with unmistakable pride. I work very hard for 2nd place. My condolences on the rankings. 1st place is my cousin, was my cousin. Her voice flattened. Kethmora, remember. The sanctuary seemed to contract. Kael's throat tightened. I remember. You were there, you saw. I was there, I tried to. He cut himself off. Tried to what? Tried to save people while his battalion locked down the village. Tried to protest orders that came from orbital command. Tried to sleep at night afterward. I pulled 3 children out of a burning building. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered. Ziriva's ears flattened completely against her skull, the Thessian equivalent of clenched fists. 3 children. My people lost 47 in Kethmora, but you saved 3, so you are hero. I'm not a hero. I'm a medic who couldn't save 44. He stood, needing distance, needing air that didn't taste like accusations and ash. You want to shoot me? Go ahead. Gun's empty, but I'm sure you've got a knife somewhere. Make it quick, though. I've got a quota of guilt to meet before dinner. She stared at him. Then impossibly she laughed, sharp and bitter but genuine. You are very bad at being soldier. Aware of that, thanks. Good soldiers do not argue with prisoners about philosophy of medicine. You're not my prisoner, you're my patient. He turned back, and patients are supposed to rest, not conduct tactical debriefings. Rest. She tested the word like a foreign concept. Embalmed temple, while human occupation force searches for me. Very relaxing scenario. Could be worse. Could be Lieutenant Vance doing your intake exam. He thinks bedside manner means standing beside the bed. Another laugh, smaller this time. Ziriva touched her shoulder graft again, wonder creeping past suspicion. This technology, it is better than ours. We do not have cellular regeneration this advanced. One of the few things Earth exports that isn't catastrophically destructive. Kael crouched again, checking the graft's bonding progress on his scanner. Though command mostly uses it to keep soldiers fighting longer, so the ethical math gets fuzzy. You think very much about ethical math. Occupational hazard of having a conscience in a war zone. Her expression shifted, something calculating behind the ocean blue eyes. You have conscience. You hate your orders. You save enemy fighters. She leaned forward despite the pain it clearly caused. Why do you stay? The question hit harder than plasma fire. Kael sat back on his heels, scanner forgotten. Where would I go? Desert. Earth would hunt me down, defect to your side. Your people would shoot me on principle. I'm trapped in this uniform until my tour ends or I die, whichever comes first. So you choose to be trapped yourself. I chose to pay for medical school. Recruiters failed to mention the small print about colonial suppression. He rubbed his face, feeling 3 days of stubble and 7 months of regret. What about you? Why fight a war you can't win? Cannot win. Her ears shot forward, offense incarnate. We hold mountains. We disrupt supply lines. We make occupation too expensive to maintain. Your bleeding population while Earth sends reinforcements. Simple math. Not simple. Nothing is simple. She gestured at the ruined sanctuary, at the 1,000 years of history reduced to rubble. You think we fight for victory. We fight so our children remember we fought. So when you leave, and you will leave, all empires leave eventually, our children know we did not welcome destroyers. That's a long-term strategy for a short-term existence. Better than your strategy of saving lives so your commanders can destroy more lives. She winced, shifted, the adrenaline clearly wearing off. We are both trapped, human medic. You in your uniform, me in my war. Neither of us choosing freedom. Kael's scanner beeped. 20 minutes had elapsed. The graft had bonded fully, synthetic skin integrating with Thessian biology in a small miracle of medical engineering. He showed her the readout. You can move now, won't tear. So I am free to go. Medically speaking, yes. Tactically speaking, my unit is probably forming a perimeter. Your exit strategy might need work. Ziriva stood slowly, testing her balance. The pistol stayed on the ground, useless. She looked at Kael with an expression he couldn't parse, gratitude mixed with resentment, curiosity battling with trained hatred. You will report this encounter. Required to, yeah. And you will tell them who I am. Kael considered the question, considered the woman in front of him, considered the gap between duty and conscience that had been widening since Kethmora. I'll report contact with an insurgent. Shots fired, target escaped. They don't need your name. Why? Because you're right. Everything is competition with humans, and I'm competing with myself to see how long I can look in a mirror without flinching. He picked up his rifle, checked the charge. Go, before I remember I'm supposed to be a good soldier. She moved toward the sanctuary's collapsed eastern wall, paused at the threshold. Human medic. Kael, name's Kael. Kael. She tested it, accent turning it musical. I am Ziriva, since we are doing formal introductions in War Zone. Pleasure's all mine, I'm sure. Next time we meet, I will probably try to kill you. Looking forward to it. She smiled then, brief and sharp. You are very strange human. And then she was gone, blue skin and blonde hair disappearing into smoke and shadow. Kael stood alone in the ruins, listening to his unit calling his name, feeling the weight of a choice he didn't fully understand but couldn't bring himself to regret. Kael had made it exactly 40 meters toward the rally point when Ziriva's voice cut through the smoke behind him. Human medic, Kael. He spun, rifle half raised, and found her leaning against a scorched archway, her good hand pressed against the shoulder graft. Even in the dim light filtering through the temple's shattered roof, he could see fresh, iridescent blood seeping between her fingers. You said it wouldn't tear. I said it wouldn't tear if you didn't do anything stupid. He was already moving back toward her, med-kit instincts overriding tactical sense. What did you do? Climbed rubble pile, very tall rubble pile. She slid down the archway into a sitting position. Your people have eastern exits blocked. Very inconvenient. Yeah, we're terrible that way. Kael knelt, pulling out his scanner. The graft had partially separated along the upper edge, stress fracture from overexertion. I specifically said rest. Rest is the opposite of climbing. Thessian language has 17 words for different types of rest. None means sit and wait for capture. She hissed as he peeled back the damaged graft. You are being rough again. You're being a terrible patient again. We're even. He prepped a fresh graft, smaller this time, meant to reinforce the original. This is going to sting worse than before. Everything you do stings worse than before. That's what she said. Ziriva blinked. What who said? Old Earth joke. Very old, very inappropriate timing. He applied the bonding agent, watching her jaw clench. Talk to me. Stay focused. About what? More philosophy of occupation. Sure. Or you could tell me why the Eastern Mountain Insurgency's second most wanted is running solo through a hot zone. He worked quickly, hands steady despite the sound of approaching footsteps in the distance. Where's your unit? Her ears flattened. Scattered. The ambush went wrong. Your orbital reconnaissance spotted us before we could withdraw. Hence the plasma strike on a 1,000-year-old temple. Hence, she watched him work, suspicion and curiosity warring in her expression. You do this often. Repair same patient multiple times in one day. New personal record, actually. Usually people have the decency to stay fixed. The reinforcement graft sealed. He checked the bond, satisfied. There, third time's the charm, as they say. Who says this? Humans. We're very optimistic about patterns of 3. Thessians prefer patterns of 7, more sacred. Good thing I'm not charging by the visit. He sat back, wiping his hands. Though if you tear this one, I'm submitting an invoice. She almost smiled. You are strange enemy. Getting that a lot today. His earpiece crackled. Lieutenant Vance, closer now, demanding status. Kael muted it again. You need to move. Actually move this time, not climb any more rubble mountains. Western exit. Might be clear, might not. We've got limited personnel. He stood, offering his hand without thinking. She stared at it for a long moment before accepting, letting him pull her upright. Her skin was cooler than human normal, textured differently, and the brief contact felt like crossing some invisible boundary neither of them had words for. Why do you keep helping me? The question came softer than before, genuine confusion rather than accusation. Kael released her hand, stepped back. Because watching people die when I could save them makes me complicit in their death. And I'm already complicit in enough. Philosopher medic. Guilty medic. He checked his rifle charge, a nervous habit. Look, you want the honest answer. I don't know why. Maybe because you're the first person in 18 months who didn't thank me for being here. Maybe because saving one insurgent leader makes me feel like less of a collaborator. Or maybe I'm just tired and making terrible decisions. These are not exclusive possibilities. Aware of that, thanks. Ziriva tested her shoulder, rolling it carefully. The graft held. She looked at him with those ocean-deep eyes, and Kael had the uncomfortable sensation of being dissected, analyzed, filed away in some mental dossier marked anomalies in enemy behavior. You should know something, human medic Kael. Can't wait to hear it. This temple before your orbital strike, it was not insurgent position. His stomach dropped. What? It was refugee shelter, families fleeing your processing plants in the lowlands, farmers, children, elders. Her voice stayed level, factual, which somehow made it worse. We used it sometimes for supply cash, yes, but the day of the strike, 53 civilians taking sanctuary in sacred space. Kael felt the ground shift beneath him. The intelligence brief said, "Your intelligence brief was wrong, or lie, does distinction matter?" She touched her shoulder graft. "You saved enemy today, congratulations. You also bombed refugees 3 days ago. Simple math, as you say." I didn't call in that strike. No, you just wear uniform of people who did. You just follow orders of commanders who did. You just treat wounds of soldiers who did. Her ears flattened completely. Tell me again about your Hippocratic oath, about doing no harm. Ziriva, I show you something. She moved toward the sanctuary's interior, and despite every tactical instinct screaming at him to leave, to rejoin his unit, to stop making catastrophically bad decisions, Kael followed. The sanctuary's western wall had survived mostly intact, though plasma scoring marred its surface like claw marks. In the flickering light from small fires still burning in the rubble, Kael could make out carved reliefs, figures in flowing robes, scenes of gathering and celebration, symbols he didn't recognize but could feel the weight of. Kathara Temple, 4,000 years old, Ziriva said, running her fingers over the carvings. These show the gathering of 7 tribes when our people chose peace over conquest, chose to build rather than destroy. She pointed to a specific panel, half melted by plasma fire. This figure, Kathara herself, philosopher-physician, first to write that healing and harming cannot coexist in same hands. Like the Hippocratic Oath. Older than your Hippocratic Oath, by 1,000 years. She turned to face him. Your Earth thinks it brings civilization to primitive colony world, but we knew not to bomb hospitals before your species learned to write. Kael stared at the ruined carvings, at 4 millennia of philosophical tradition reduced to scorched stone. I'm sorry. You apologize often for things you claim not to do. Because I'm still doing them. Still part of the machine that does them. He touched the wall, felt heat still radiating from the plasma damage. I don't know how to reconcile this. Saving you and destroying your culture. Being a healer in an army of occupation. You cannot reconcile, this is point. Ziriva's voice softened slightly. You save me because you are healer. You destroy us because you are soldier. Both are true. Both make you complicit. Welcome to moral complexity. I hate moral complexity. Everyone hates moral complexity. This is why wars happen. A crash echoed from the eastern wing. Voices calling an Earth standard, getting closer. Kael's unit had expanded their search perimeter. You need to go, now. Western exit straight through that archway, then left at the collapsed foundation. He pointed. My people won't have secured that route yet. You are giving me tactical information. I'm giving you a way to not die. Medicine, not tactics. Semantics. Survival. He checked his earpiece. 30 seconds, maybe less, before someone had a line of sight. Go. She hesitated at the archway, looking back at the sanctuary, at the carvings, at him. Next time you save someone, human medic, ask yourself who you are saving them from. Next time you shoot at someone, ask yourself if they called in the strike. Not how war works. Yeah, well, Kael managed something like a smile. I'm bad at war, remember. Terribly bad. She moved into the archway's shadow. Thank you for the healing, not for the occupation. You're welcome for the healing, not for the occupation. Then she was gone again, and Kael was alone with the carvings and the ash and the growing sound of his unit converging on his position. He looked at Cathara's half-melted face, at the philosophy of healing and harming that predated his entire civilization, and wondered what kind of medic he was becoming in the ruins of someone else's world. Drummond. Lieutenant Vance emerged from the smoke, rifle ready. The hell have you been? Kael turned, arranging his face into something resembling military composure. Conducting field triage, sir. Civilian casualties from the strike. Any insurgent contact. He thought of Ziriva's blood on his hands, the weight of her gratitude and accusation, the impossible math of saving one person while serving the machine that destroyed thousands. Negative, sir. Nothing but ghosts. 3 hours after filing his report, insurgent contact, shots exchanged, target escaped. Kael sat in the medical bay organizing supplies that didn't need organizing. His hands moved on autopilot, restocking coagulant cartridges, calibrating scanner settings, doing anything to avoid thinking about iridescent blood and ocean blue eyes and philosophical carvings melted by weapons he'd sworn to never use. Private Jenks stuck his head through the doorway. Doc got a walk-in, says his shoulder's killing him. Tell him to take a number. Shoulder injuries are very popular today. Jenks blinked. That's a joke, right? Trying out new material. How's it landing? Like a plasma strike, Doc, uncomfortably. Kael waved him in. The walk-in turned out to be Corporal Davies, who'd apparently discovered that power armor and low doorways were natural enemies. Minor contusion, nothing serious, but Davies milked it for all the sympathy he could extract. Could have been worse, Kael said, applying a basic dermal regenerator. Could have been a real combat injury. This is a real injury, Doc. I could have died. From embarrassment, maybe. Davies left grumbling, and Kael returned to his unnecessary supply organization. His scanner sat on the counter, its display still showing the last readings he'd taken. Ziriva's biosignature stored in the device's memory. Thessian physiology, female, approximately 25 standard years, plasma burns to the left shoulder, blood type. He deleted the file. His hands shook slightly as he did it. Erasing evidence, destroying medical records, violating about 6 different protocols. But keeping her biosignature in the system felt like a betrayal of something he couldn't name. The scanner beeped its confirmation of deletion, and Kael felt simultaneously lighter and more complicit than before. Talking to yourself, Drummond. He spun. Lieutenant Vance leaned in the doorway, arms crossed, wearing that expression of perpetual suspicion that came standard with command rank. Just thinking out loud, sir. Dangerous habit in a war zone. Vance stepped inside, examining the medical bay with the casual invasion of privacy officers considered their birthright. Your report from the temple. Want to walk me through it again? Kael's pulse jumped. Not much to walk through. Took contact, returned fire, target escaped in the smoke. Standard encounter. Standard. Vance picked up a coagulant cartridge, turned it over in his hands. Except you were offline for 43 minutes. Long time for a standard encounter. Treated civilian casualties. Multiple injuries requiring extensive care. Find any bodies? Mostly ash, sir. Plasma fire doesn't leave much to recover. No, it doesn't. Vance set down the cartridge, met Kael's eyes. You know what I think, Drummond. I think you're too soft for this work. I think you see enemies as patients and forget they're trying to kill us. With respect, sir, that's literally my job. The patient part, not the forgetting part. Your job is to keep our soldiers combat ready, not to philosophize about Thessian rights or occupation ethics, or whatever you medics discuss in your spare time. Kael kept his expression neutral. Just trying to minimize casualties, sir, on all sides. All sides? Vance laughed without humor. There's two sides, Drummond, ours and theirs. The sooner you internalize that, the better you'll sleep. I sleep fine, sir. Liar, but there was something almost sympathetic in Vance's voice. Look, I get it. 18 months is long enough to start questioning things. But questioning doesn't change orders, and orders don't care about your conscience. We're here until command says otherwise, and while we're here, we do our jobs. Understood, sir. Vance moved toward the door, paused at the threshold. That insurgent you engaged, you get a clear look. Kael's mouth went dry. Smoke and distance, sir, nothing definitive. Pity. Intel's been trying to track their Eastern Cell leadership for months. Real feather in our cap if we could bag one of their commanders. He glanced back. You'll let me know if you remember any useful details. Of course, sir. After Vance left, Kael sat on the edge of an examination table, head in his hands, wondering how many more lies he could tell before he forgot what truth looked like. His communicator buzzed. Message from command. Revised casualty estimates from the Thessia strike. 53 confirmed civilian deaths. 53. The same number Ziriva had given him. His hand started shaking again. The medical bay's door hissed open. Kael looked up, expecting another minor injury, another distraction from the math of complicity. Instead, he found Dr. Sarah Chen, the senior medical officer, carrying 2 cups of what the military optimistically called coffee. You look like someone just informed you of the heat death of the universe, she said, handing him a cup. Close. Someone informed me I'm complicit in a massacre. Chen sat beside him, on the examination table. She'd been in-country for 3 years, long enough to develop the 1,000-yard stare and dark humor that marked veteran medical personnel. Thessia, among others. Yeah, she sipped her coffee, made a face. This tastes like regret and burnt plastic. That's the official flavor profile. They sat in companionable misery for a moment. Chen had a way of being present without demanding conversation, a skill Kael appreciated more than he could articulate. You know what the worst part is? He said finally. The knowledge that we're healing people so they can go back to destroying other people. That's second worst. Worst is that I'm starting to see them as people. Them, the enemy, the insurgents. The targets. He turned the coffee cup in his hands. Spent 18 months dehumanizing them so I could function. Now he stopped, unsure how much to confess. Rehumanizing them. Chen finished. Welcome to the club. We meet Tuesdays. Membership includes existential dread and moral injury. Do we get t-shirts? No, but we get guilt, so much guilt. Kael almost laughed. You ever think about leaving? Early discharge, medical reasons, creative interpretation of regulations. Every day. Chen's voice went quiet. But then I think about who'd replace me. some fresh recruit who still believes the propaganda, who hasn't learned that every life saved is just borrowed time before the next strike. At least I know what we are. At least I'm not pretending this is humanitarian. That's a depressing reason to stay. All the reasons to stay are depressing. That's how you know you're paying attention. She stood stretched. But for what it's worth, Drummond, you're one of the good ones. You still give a damn. Don't lose that, even if it makes everything harder. After she left, Kael sat alone with his terrible coffee and worse thoughts. His scanner sat on the counter, biosignature deleted, evidence erased. Somewhere in the mountains, Ziriva was probably briefing her unit about the strange human medic who'd saved her twice. Somewhere in Orbital Command, officers were reviewing casualty reports and planning the next surgical strike. And somewhere in the gap between healer and soldier, between duty and conscience, Kael Drummond was trying to figure out which side of the war he was really fighting on. His communicator buzzed again. Another message, this time from intelligence. New reconnaissance data on eastern insurgent positions. Probable command structure identified. Targeting priorities updated. Kael read the coordinates, felt his stomach drop. The hidden valley. The one Ziriva had mentioned in passing, the place where non-combatants sheltered. He'd given her tactical information. She'd given him the same. Both of them carrying away intelligence that could save lives or end them, depending on who used it first. He stared at the message, at the coordinates that represented families and fighters and the impossible calculus of war. Then, very carefully, he marked it as read and did absolutely nothing else. Kael found her in the last place he expected, sitting on the hood of a disabled supply transport 3 kilometers from base, watching the double moons rise over Thessia IV's western mountains. She had a rifle across her lap and what looked like stolen military rations in her hand. "Those taste like cardboard and lies," he called out, hands visible, medkit slung over his shoulder. Ziriva didn't turn. "Better than Thessian field rations. Those taste like cardboard and broken promises." She gestured to the space beside her. "You are alone." "Off duty. Told them I needed to check perimeter medical caches." He climbed onto the transport's hood, keeping distance between them. "You're a long way from the mountains. You are a long way from your base." "Taché." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the moons paint the landscape in shades of silver and blue. Kael pulled out his own rations, made a show of opening the packet. "Want to trade terrible food and worse secrets?" "What secrets do you have worth trading?" "I know about the valley. The one you didn't quite mention but definitely mentioned." He ate a bite of protein paste, grimaced. "Intel flagged it 2 days ago. Strike package is being assembled." Ziriva's hand tightened on her rifle. "And you came to gloat." "I came to tell you that the coordinates mysteriously got corrupted in transmission. Clerical error. Happens all the time with atmospheric interference." He met her eyes. "You've got maybe 72 hours to move your non-combatants before someone notices and corrects it." She stared at him. "You are committing treason." "I'm correcting a clerical error, totally different." He took another bite of rations. "How's the shoulder?" "You deflect with humor when uncomfortable. You deflect with accusations when surprised. We're both terrible at emotions." Ziriva set down her stolen rations, turned to face him fully. "Why, human medic Kael, why risk court-martial for enemy refugees?" "Because I read the casualty report from Kethara. 53 civilians. Because I've spent 18 months healing people so they can destroy more people. Because I'm tired of being complicit." He paused. "And because you were right, about everything. About the occupation, about the hypocrisy. About me hiding behind my med-kit while wearing the uniform of destroyers. This is character growth, very dramatic. I'm trying to have a moment here." "Your moment tastes like cardboard." But she smiled, brief and genuine. "You are still very strange human. And you're still very frustrating patient." He pulled out his scanner, nodded at her shoulder. "Let me check the graft." Professional curiosity. She rolled her eyes but shifted to give him access. The graft had healed cleanly, synthetic skin integrating perfectly with Thessian tissue. His handiwork, preserved on the body of someone who should be his enemy. Kael felt an odd pride in that. Perfect bond, he said. You'll have a scar, but it's stable. Good scars are useful. They remind us what we survived. Ziriva touched the healed tissue. This scar will remind me that not all humans are destroyers. Some are just very confused about their job description. I'm not confused anymore. No, Kael packed away his scanner. I put in for early discharge. Medical reasons. Cited moral injury, psychological distress, inability to reconcile healing mission with military occupation. Dr. Chen signed off on it. They will approve. Probably not, but I filed it anyway. On record now. Let them explain why they're keeping a medic who refuses to serve the occupation. He looked at the mountains, at the stars beyond. Either they discharge me or court-martial me. Either way, I'm done pretending. Ziriva studied him with those ocean-deep eyes. You will lose everything. Career, reputation, future on Earth. Probably, but I'll be able to look at myself in a mirror again. Seems like a fair trade. You are very stupid human. Getting that a lot lately. She reached out, hesitated, then placed her hand over his. Her skin was cool, textured differently than human, and the contact felt like a promise neither of them could keep, but both wanted to make anyway. In different universe, she said quietly, we could be friends, maybe more than friends. In different universe, I wouldn't be occupying your planet, and you wouldn't be trying to kill my people. Much better universe. Significantly better. He turned his hand, let their fingers intertwine. For what it's worth, if I could choose any patient to repeatedly save while making terrible decisions, it'd be you. Most romantic thing anyone has said to me, while sitting on stolen military equipment. I try. They sat like that as the moons climbed higher, two people on opposite sides of a war neither wanted, holding hands in the space between what was and what could never be. In the distance, Kael's base hummed with activity. Further still in the mountains, Ziriva's people planned their next operation. You should go, Kael said finally. Dawn Patrol will be sweeping this sector. You should go too. Before someone notices, you are missing. Neither moved, Ziriva. Yes, next time we meet. If there is a next time, I won't be wearing this uniform. Next time we meet, I will try very hard not to shoot you. That's all I ask. She squeezed his hand once, then released it, sliding off the transport. Her rifle stayed on her shoulder, unpowered. Human medic Kael, you have terrible survival instincts. Aware of that, thanks. Good thing you met excellent insurgent leader to compensate. Very lucky coincidence. Ziriva moved toward the darkness, paused at the edge of shadow. The valley, thank you for the clerical error. Thank you for not shooting me. Multiple times. Is ongoing courtesy. Do not make me regret it. Then she was gone. Disappeared into the Thessian night like smoke, like hope, like the possibility that people could choose something different than the war they'd been given. Kael sat alone on the transport, watching the place where she'd vanished, feeling the ghost of her hand in his. Somewhere in orbital command, officers reviewed strike packages. Somewhere in intelligence, analysts flagged corrupted coordinates. Somewhere in the machinery of occupation, the war continued its grinding progress. But in a ruined temple, a combat medic had saved an insurgent leader. In a medical bay, he'd deleted her biosignature. In a transmission error, he'd protected her refugees. Small acts of resistance against the weight of empire, tiny rebellions against the calculus of complicity. Kael climbed down from the transport and started the walk back to base. His discharge papers were filed. His conscience was clearer. His future was uncertain. But for the first time in 18 months, when he closed his eyes, he didn't see Kethmora burning. He saw ocean blue eyes and a smile that said maybe, in some impossible future, people could be more than the wars they fought. His communicator buzzed. Dr. Chen, where are you? Lieutenant Vance is asking questions. He typed back. On my way, had to fix something. Fix what? Kael looked at the mountains, at the stars, at the vast and complicated universe, where healers wore uniforms and enemies held hands, and nothing was simple except the choice to try being better. Myself, he typed. I fixed myself. Then he walked back toward the lights of the base, carrying the weight of decisions made and bridges burned. No longer just a medic serving an occupation, but a person who'd chosen conscience over orders, humanity over sides, healing over harm. Behind him in the mountains, Ziriva would be warning her people about the valley. They'd evacuate in time. 72 hours was enough. It had to be enough. Because in the ruins of a 1,000-year-old temple, amid the ash of faith and the debris of war, two people had found something neither expected. Recognition. The knowledge that the enemy was human too, or close enough, and that recognition, once seen, couldn't be unseen. Kael touched his shoulder, the mirror of where he'd healed hers, and smiled. Some wounds, he thought, were worth keeping.